After having lived in a small, single-floor condo for a few years, I began to hear sounds, usually in the early mornings, that would often wake me up. I'd hear knocking, often on the door of my room. Thumps, bangs, slamming doors, loud crashes, and even a young man's voice coming from somewhere else in my house. Not every day, but several times a week, I'd wake up to one or more of these. In the early days, I'd usually come out of my room and ask my family what was going on, who was knocking on my door and banging stuff around. I was really alarmed by the loud crashes, and sometimes a voice coming from the other end of the house. No one else ever heard it, and they had no idea what I was talking about. This place was 900 square feet with 3 people living there. Many times I'd come out and there'd be no one there, and nothing disturbed. The voice sounded like a young man, a few years older than my son at the time, who himself was around 10. So I'd often go to him and ask him what was going on. It was never him. He was asleep or quiet in his room and heard nothing. This became so frequent that I eventually stopped investigating the commotion. I chalked it up to auditory hallucinations. I just accepted it and learned to live with the noise. I would often lie in bed and ask myself, what are the chances I'm hearing something real? Probably low. Then I'd just ignore it. Over a couple of years, the noises escalated in frequency and volume. It was definitely affecting my sleep, as it happened almost every day, at least once or twice. Then, the screaming started. I was asleep, early morning, and suddenly it felt like someone stood next to the bed, put their mouth directly next to my ear, and screamed at the top of their lungs. I jolted awake and took out my earplugs. There was no one there. I was so scared and confused. My ear was ringing and painful. It was a male voice, probably teenaged. A long drawn-out word. It sounded like help. This happened a few more times, and that's when I started to take it a bit more seriously. I was really shaken by the sound of utter desperation and pain in that voice. It broke my heart to think, what if there was a real person screaming for help? I decided to do a little experiment. I operated under the assumption that this person was real and asking for my help. Over a couple of days, I prayed earnestly for them. I prayed to angels, spirit guides, helpers, anyone who might be listening. I asked that he be helped, protected, guided home, etc. Immediately, everything stopped. Not one more knock or bump that I had to become accustomed to. I lived in that house for several more years, and the noises never came back. It makes me wonder, if it was indeed a real ghost, why was I the only one to hear the sounds? And what the hell was he doing to make all that racket? Last year, my mom called me panicked about what she just saw while she was driving home. To this day, nobody has an answer, and I'm curious if anyone here has an idea. She was driving on the highway between 2 small towns where most of the drive consists of farmland and patches of wooded area. What she described was this skinny, dog-like creature that was standing on its hind legs. However, that's not all that makes it weird. Its legs were bending backwards. When it noticed the car, she watched it grab a deer carcass and drag it off the side of the road and into one of the wooded areas. I've tried finding similar stories, but the closest thing I found was the dog man in Michigan. However, it didn't have backwards hind legs. We live in Missouri, so that hypothesis went out the door. Does anyone else have any ideas or similar experiences? Lately, I've been having some nightmares, and I'm not sure if I should be worried. The first nightmare I had happened a few months ago. I dreamt that I was looking at myself from above, like lying in bed, and I could see myself screaming and telling something to leave me alone and to get out of me. And then I woke up in the exact same position that I had been seeing. It was exactly 3 a.m. The second nightmare was 2 days ago, and honestly, it's messed me up. I dreamt that a family member tried to poison me. In my dream, I looked in the mirror, and I was covered in sores, pale, and had purple lips. In the dream, my family member said that it was something that they'd never do. But then, they started laughing, this creepy demonic laugh, and their face changed. Out of nowhere, a cross appeared around my neck, and they started laughing and mocking me, saying that they had already prepared my coffin. At that moment, I grabbed the cross and held it to my chest, closed my eyes, and I woke up. Again, it was exactly 3 a.m. After I woke up, I heard knocking sounds coming from the wall in my room for about an hour. Since that last dream, I've been wearing a necklace with a little cross on it. I've had this constant feeling of unease, like something's not right. Something's there, lurking in the back of my mind. Also, every night, my dog randomly starts barking in the hallway near my bedroom door, staring at the front door of the house like someone's there. But no one is. Sometimes my dog comes into my room and stares at the mirror or at random spots and starts growling. And it's really hard to calm him down. Could these nightmares mean something? I keep dreaming about demons and waking up at 3 a.m. This happened a couple years ago, early 2019 if I remember correctly. I had a noise machine to help me sleep. I had it going. Suddenly, I felt this intense feeling of dread and terror, like nothing I felt before. I'm talking pit in the stomach, heart starts going crazy, adrenaline. I thought at the time I was having sleep paralysis because I've had a few experiences before, but I could move my body, so that kind of ruled it out. My eyes were closed tightly because I didn't want to risk seeing whatever was making me feel this scared. But eventually, I gave in and opened my eyes. Right at the foot of my bed, there was this torso. No legs, no head, no arms. Just a torso. Just floating in the air. It kind of sounds funny, to be honest, thinking back on it, but at the time, I was absolutely terrified. I was calling for my mom, but she couldn't hear me over my noise machine. I felt, for some reason, that it was mocking me. I couldn't move either, out of fear. I still don't think it was sleep paralysis because I could feel the difference between just not being able to move and not being able to move purely out of fear. My closet was open, and I could see a shriveled, creepy face peering out at me and pointing this long, slender hand out from the closet. My mom eventually heard me because at this point, I was screaming for her to open the door. As soon as the light hit my room, everything just disappeared. I told her what happened, and she was concerned. But after looking around, she just told me to go back to sleep. The weird thing was, you can usually chalk it up to being something like a pile of clothes or a jacket. But where the torso was, there was nothing there. And there was no poster or picture or anything. And there was no ceiling fan. There was nothing. It was honestly one of the most terrifying things that I ever experienced.